10 days. That's all that stands between a fragile pause and the most consequential escalation in Middle Eastern history. And nobody, not even the people making these decisions, knows which way it goes. Let's get something straight right away. Trump didn't stop the war. He delayed one specific category of strikes. Iranian energy infrastructure gets a 10-day reprieve. Bombing runs on Tehran, Beirut, Isfahan, Shiraz, Bandar Abbas, those continued. The night Trump announced the pause, AFP reporters in Tehran heard warplanes overhead and 3 loud explosions. Israeli strikes hit Beirut's southern suburbs the same evening. So when the headlines said ceasefire, what they actually meant was, we're not bombing your oil refineries right now. That's a very different thing. And the market understood that immediately. Brent crude had spiked 5.7% on March 26th, then dropped 1.7% the moment Trump's extension was announced. Not because the war got safer, because one specific risk got kicked down the road by 10 days. Traders aren't buying peace, they're buying time, and they're charging a premium for every hour of it. The geopolitical risk premium on oil isn't going anywhere. 8 million barrels a day are already offline. The Strait of Hormuz, which used to carry a fifth of global oil flows, is effectively strangled. Brent is up 45% in a single month. Diesel, jet fuel, heating oil, all of it has spiked harder. Businesses are bleeding. Consumers are getting crushed. And the war is 4 weeks old. 10 more days of pause won't fix any of that. Here's where it gets interesting. Trump stood in front of his cabinet and said Iran had been beat to shit. He called Iranian fighters lousy. He said the US had completely wiped out Iran's Navy and Air Force. He claimed the war effort was ahead of schedule. At the same time, he extended the deadline. Twice. You don't extend deadlines when you're winning so completely that the other side has nothing left. You extend deadlines when you need more time, when the situation is messier than the press briefings suggest, or when the off-ramp requires careful engineering. Trump's own envoy, Steve Witkoff, confirmed publicly for the first time that the US had passed a 15-point plan to Tehran through Pakistani intermediaries. Pakistan, as a mediator, that's not a minor detail. That's a significant diplomatic infrastructure that takes time to build and signals that back-channel talks have been serious enough to require a neutral broker. Witkoff called it strong signs that Tehran was ready to negotiate. He said Iran was looking for an off-ramp. He framed Iran as cornered, with no good alternatives. But here's the thing. Iran's official response, sent the same night through those same intermediaries, wasn't exactly a white flag. Tehran's reply to the 15-point US plan laid out conditions that go far beyond what Washington put on the table. Iran demanded an end to all aggressive acts of assassination, which is a reference to strikes that have killed senior figures, including, reportedly, the supreme leader and the security chief. It demanded war reparations. It demanded that Israel and the US halt attacks on all Iran-backed groups across the region, meaning Hezbollah, the Houthis, Iraqi militias, all of it. And crucially, it asserted what it called a natural and legal right over the Strait of Hormuz. That last one is the core issue. The Strait of Hormuz isn't just a bargaining chip. For Iran, controlling that waterway is leverage over the entire global economy. The moment they give that up, or even signal they'll give it up, they lose their most powerful card. Why would they fold that hand now? Iran's Tasnim news agency also accused Washington of using peace talk optics to keep oil prices manageable while actually preparing for a ground invasion. That's a significant claim, and whether or not it's accurate, it tells you how Tehran is reading this situation. They don't trust the pause. They see it as preparation, not de-escalation. Meanwhile, an Iranian official told Reuters that Israel had removed Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi and Parliament Speaker Kalibov from its target list, apparently after Pakistan urged Washington to protect potential negotiating partners. That's interesting. You don't protect negotiators unless you think there might actually be negotiations worth having. So the question isn't whether talks are happening. They clearly are. The question is whether either side actually wants the same outcome from those talks. And then there's Israel. For the first week of this war, Israel's political establishment was unified. This was the existential moment everyone had been preparing for. Take out Iran's nuclear program, break its axis of resistance, reshape the region. Everyone was on board. That consensus is now visibly cracking. Opposition leader Yair Lapid, who had been quietly supportive of the war effort, went public on March 26th with a warning that stopped short of nothing. He said Israel was facing another security disaster. He said the IDF was stretched to the limit and beyond. He accused the government of sending soldiers into a multi-front war without a strategy, without the necessary means, and with far too few soldiers. These weren't opposition talking points. These were echoes of what Military Chief Lieutenant General Eyal Zamir had reportedly said in a private security cabinet meeting the day before, where he apparently warned that the IDF is on the verge of collapse and raised what he called 10 red flags. Former Prime Minister Naftali Bennett said Israel was not winning anywhere. Not in Lebanon, not in Gaza, and in Iran, we will see. He pointed out that Iran still has 460 kilograms of enriched uranium, which suggests the central strategic objective of the war remains unachieved. The troop shortage issue traces back to a long-running political crisis over whether ultra-Orthodox men should be required to serve in the military. Netanyahu has resisted passing legislation on this because his coalition depends on ultra-Orthodox political parties. The military is now openly demanding conscription. Netanyahu reportedly promised the Security Cabinet it would happen after Passover holidays in early April. April, the same time frame as the end of Trump's extended pause. That's not a coincidence, that's a pressure cooker. While the geopolitical chess match plays out, the world economy is quietly getting dismantled. Oil at $106 a barrel for Brent, with Macquarie analysts warning that a prolonged conflict through June could push it to $200, is not a contained Middle Eastern problem. That's inflation everywhere. That's central banks being forced into impossible choices between fighting price spikes and supporting slowing growth. Trump is getting pressure domestically too. Al Jazeera's reporting from Washington flagged long lines at airports, worsening cost of living, fuel prices climbing, and a president who needs visible wins to maintain political momentum. The 10-day extension buys something for Trump at home. It lets him say talks are progressing. It gives him a narrative to present to Americans who are now paying significantly more to fill their tanks and board flights. It separates Trump the dealmaker from Trump the wartime president, a distinction he clearly wants to maintain. But economic pressure cuts both ways. Iran's population is also absorbing the cost of this war. The closure of Hormuz hasn't just hurt the global economy. It has squeezed Iran's own trade and created humanitarian strain inside the country. That creates pressure on Tehran too, which might explain why they let 10 oil tankers transit the strait as a goodwill gesture, while simultaneously asserting legal sovereignty over it. It's a calculated signal. We can open the valve, we can close it, and we decide. So here's where we land. April 6th is not a peace deadline. It's a decision point. By that date, several things will either have happened or not. Iran will have responded substantively to whatever US counterproposal follows their rejection of the original 15 points. Israel will have either passed or blocked the conscription legislation its military is demanding. Trump will have had 2 more weeks of domestic economic pressure building against him. And the US will have positioned additional Marine expeditionary units in the region. That last part is the one that doesn't get discussed enough. While Trump talks about talks going well, the US is physically moving more military assets into position. That's not de-escalation preparation. That's optionality. It means whoever makes the call on April 6th will have more kinetic options available than they do today. Macquarie put the odds of a longer war extending to late June at 40%. That scenario, in their analysis, could push oil to $200 a barrel. That would be an economic event without modern precedent in terms of speed and severity. And none of the parties involved, not Washington, not Tehran, not Jerusalem, are fully in control of how this plays out. Here's the thought that should stay with you. Everyone involved in this conflict is publicly claiming they're winning. Trump says Iran has been obliterated. Iran says it's asserting its rights and awaiting a response. Israel's government says it's building buffer zones and meeting objectives. And yet, every single one of them has also extended a timeline, called for more resources, or quietly opened a back channel. The 10-day pause isn't proof that de-escalation is coming. It's proof that nobody is ready to find out what happens if it doesn't. April 6th arrives either as the beginning of a deal or the beginning of something much harder to stop. We'll find out which one together.